Often in training circles and training classes, I get asked, when do we stop using rewards? Why do we have to use rewards? I don't want my dog to only listen to me if I've got a reward. I don't want my dog to eat human food. I don't want my dog to beg. Oh, I see the dog's just doing it because of the food. All of these things, which are all wrong. And it's not about reward-based training at all. Reward-based training is not about bribery. It is not about getting your dog to listen to you because you have food. It is about getting your dog to listen to you and then get rewarded by something they love, which is generally food. If you are adamant about the food thing, you can use a toy. Okay, and you can use your toy as a reward. A lot of people with very high drive working dogs, Malleys and Border Collies, they like to use toys because those dogs are very active and quite often are in a kind of a state of excitement when they're training where they may not be as keen on eating in the first place, whereas they're a little bit overstimulated, maybe a little bit stressed in a sense, and then the enteric system doesn't work as well to absorb the food. Sometimes when dogs come to training classes, they're also nervous and treats don't work for the first few sessions. You can try a toy then, but quite often if the dog is not feeling particularly comfortable in the first place, they're not going to really want to play anyway. But by all means, if you hate food, whenever I'm using food, go ahead, use a toy. But if you are using food in the correct manner as a reward, you are going to get better results than using any other method of training. And it's really simple as to why. So I want you to think back to when you were in school or in a teaching environment that you can remember, where you had a teacher that you really loved and you had one that you really didn't like. And I want you to think about how you felt about those subjects that teacher was teaching. So I had a maths and science teacher at school that I really didn't like. And it made those subjects that I really didn't like. And I ended up having a great hatred for them both, which is kind of sad because actually the way my brain works, I would have loved doing science in particular. And I think I probably would have enjoyed maths a whole lot more if I'd had a better teacher, or one that I liked, okay? And when I think about the subjects where I loved my teachers, so geography, I don't know where that word came from, and English, I did do it. Those two subjects in particular at school, I adored my teachers, and I did particularly well. I hated history. I really battled through history, and I then ended up with a teacher that I really liked. And she had a great sense of humor, and Mrs. Gold was her name. She is, I think, now deceased, but lovely lady, very dry sense of humor. And because of her way of teaching and the way she was, I started to like history. And I actually did so much better in that subject at school because of her and the fact that I felt comfortable learning. So when you're using punishment to teach, or your dog is not feeling entirely comfortable with you, quite simply, they're just not going to learn as fast. So if you're going to go and use corrective training or choke chains, shock collars, wherever you are on that sphere of training in your own mind, I'm not going to argue with you, but I could, but I'm not going to waste my time. But it is going to make the dog's learning ability in their whole body and their brain a lot harder, even though it may appear quicker because the dog is reacting to a pain stimulus. So, of course, it's going to react a lot quicker. If I go ahead and touch a boiling hot stove, yes, I'm going to end up getting burned. I'm going to move my hand very fast. If I touch it a few times and it's not on, and then I'm like, okay, I can touch it, and then you say to me, don't touch it. Why mustn't I touch it? Well, you're going to get burned. Okay, am I? And I always say to people, everybody has to burn themselves to believe the stove theory. And this is why it is so apparently effective when you see dogs that are trained using discipline-based methods, because those dogs have had pain. They've learned that lesson very well. So I pulled against the chain. I got zapped. I got jerked. I got pulled, whatever. It hurts. I won't do it again. Sorry, we've got mosquitoes everywhere today. And I'm thinking, well, great. The dog is learning, but is he learning comfortably? Is he learning happily? Is he learning as well? And is he learning as fast? And are you building trust? What is trust? If your dog trusts you, you should be able to do all sorts of things to your dog. Okay, so Shelley's a rescue dog. She comes from a bad environment. But we can do all sorts of handling things with her. We can look at her teeth, we can look at her ears, we can look at her eyes, we can look at her paws. Yes, good girl, because she trusts me. And she knows I'm not going to hurt her. I'm going to conduct an investigation of her very wet, pond-filled body, and then I'm going to reward her one way or another. Sometimes with treats, sometimes just with a fun thing, sometimes just with pets, whatever it is. So that's number one. Trust is number two. So food is fine, trust is fun. Please don't think that if you are going to train your dog and you don't want to use food, that you are doing them a service, because you're really not. If you are building trust and you're building a reward-based training, you're having fun, you're building a relationship with your dog. In the next video, I'm going to talk about bribery and corruption and why we want to differentiate between that and training using food, because those are very different things.